Do you want to start, Paul?
Okay, yes, I'll start. A few years ago, Kate showed me this amazing body of work that was just this incredible oral history of the periods prior and around Acid House, sort of 1987 to 1992. And it was an incredible series of interviews with people that hadn't been yet charted on that map of contributing knowledge to this period of time. People telling different stories or more nuanced, subtle things. And I was so blown away with it, and Kate was like, well, I'm just trying to put it together and get it finished. And I was like, you have to finish it, because this needs to be in the world as a document. And I was just really incredibly amazed that this existed and it needed to be out there. And now here it is, looking absolutely beautiful. And the first thing I kind of wanted to ask you was, 1987, 1988, where were you, and how do you, when you look at yourself at that time, see yourself now in that period of time? So where were you then, and how did, through the writing of this book and doing the interviews, your perception of yourself change in that way?
Well, thanks for the question, Paul. I think, in some ways we're always the same person, right? And we look back through all the periods of our life and we can see how in some ways we're always just that little child that just wants to be happy and dance and have fun, and then other times you can look back and feel like you're a completely different person. So I guess that was part of the motivation for writing the book, because it was such a pivotal time in my life. I was very young and I'd literally just left home, and I was free, like I had no sense of responsibility. I didn't, when you're that young, when you're in my mid-teens, you don't really understand the meaning of the word responsibility. So I could just totally immerse myself in the scene and in the situation. And then obviously, as a young person, I was very naive, and I just thought we were just going to dance in fields together with our hands in the air for the rest of our lives. And plot twist, it didn't work out like that. So then I spent a long time wondering, what happened in those years. And it's called the Untold Story because I never felt like I'd heard my story told, not like my story, but the story that I had experienced and that I had lived. Because there started to be, and it took about 20 years for books to start come out, but they then made a very corporatized narrative of like 4 white guys went to Ibiza and invaded Acid House, and that was definitely a really major part of what happened and a really important part of what happened. But there was this whole other side to it that I'd experienced that was more underground and more like, there was a lot more highs, but there was also a lot more lows and a lot more, there was a lot of darkness, but there was a lot of euphoria and ecstasy as well. So yeah, I wanted to kind of try and understand why that time was so pivotal and so important, and why it changed my life, and why it changed the life of, I would say, most of our generation who experienced it. We were all changed in different ways by it.
In different ways. Yeah, and just to touch on one of the things you said there, and to kind of use a slightly dirty word, politics, either with a small p in terms of personal politics or a bigger word. What do you feel, because I think sometimes the more political nature of some of the groups that were part of that period of time, the Spiral Tribe, or the more kind of anno-punk, rave, anarchists, I don't know how you'd exactly describe them, you could probably describe them better than me, and also partly because one of the first people that you said gave you the idea of the book was Roger the Raver, who was part of that Spiral scene. What do you feel that they were offering that was different to society at that time, and how did it manifest itself through their actions into the rave scene? And I think even though some of their story's been told, I think a lot of the gaps you fill in. So I just want you to say a little bit more about that kind of energy coming from those people, which weren't just one set of group of people, with several. I don't know if you could elaborate or expand on that.
Yeah, well, I think there's lots of parallels with how things are now and how things were then. And it was so bleak before Acid House came along, and it was all the miners' strike, and we were going to all get killed with the press of a button in a nuclear war, and it was Margaret Thatcher, and it was so dark and cynical, and the club scene was so pretentious and so like, I want to say it had a stick up its arse. It was like really like, had to be one thing, and then that just smashed all that apart. So that's really why we're here now, right? Where we have the club culture we have now, where we have dance music culture that we have now, because it just was like an explosion that changed everything. And I think the political aspect of it was like, it sounds so obvious now, and obviously, you know, the next generation, they're much more able to represent this and embody this more fully. But to us, it was kind of like, we realized, oh, we're allowed to be happy, you know, we're allowed to smile at each other. That's why we had the smiley face. Oh, we were allowed to smile. Yeah. It sounds kind of crazy, but you had to frown, and you had to be moody, and you had to be depressed. And I think that was the main politics of it. It's like, we're not going to listen to all your lies and the ways you're trying to always hold us back and keep us down and just oppress us. Basically, we're actually going to let loose and have fun, and F you, we're just going to enjoy ourselves. And that was such a political act then, and it still is to a degree now, because they're still constantly trying to, you know, destroy our lives in all kind of different ways, right? But there's always a war, and there's always division, and actually by saying, actually, we're going to stand for something better, just like Sam's doing here, she's representing something better and something different, then that's how we make change. So it's I guess the person is political, right? Yeah. It's not like politics with a capital P, like you said, but it's how we can live and make change just by the choices that we make.
Yeah, and I think the reverberations are, like, I think, you know, we wouldn't necessarily have this beautiful festival that we're here now were it not for those kind of changes. But also another side that you bring out in the book is very much the underwritten story of Black British musicians and culture to the rave scene. As you said, quite often the history of house music is told as, you know, if a white goes to Ibiza, discover ecstasy, bring the music back and do it, and you get shimmy, etc. And whilst, as you said, that's part of the story, it was also very interesting to me because you interview many people in the book, from Fitzroy the Buzzboy that I was originally in a sound collective with from when I was 16, through to Norman J, Jazzy B, Mark Mack, and really importantly for me, Trevor Shakes, who was originally a DJ and a dancer like Paul Trouble Anson. And this whole crew of black musicians, dancers, DJs, producers really contributed hugely to rave culture, and I'm really pleased to see their contribution in the book. And why do you think they've been previously not exactly erased, but written in the margins rather than being in the mainframe? Because for me, that whole energy of black musicians and subculture has been the foundational force for all of dance music in this country, let alone being a small part of it. So what did you find out through interviewing them? How do you feel their role was? And, you know, where do you think we're at now with that?
Yeah. Well, to plug someone else's book, there's a guy called Ed Gillett who wrote a really brilliant book called Party Lines, and his is the only other book. There might be books out there, but I haven't seen any, that he really identified the importance of Caribbean sound system culture to English rave culture. And that's what I really realised from doing the interviews, that I didn't know from being there and living here, but that was probably the biggest takeaway or one of the biggest takeaways from doing the interviews, was understanding that there was like the Windrush generation, and they had the sound systems, and then their kids were going to their parties when they were kids, their house parties, and these were people you mentioned like Femi Fem, Norma J, and they brought the structure. So we wouldn't have underground club culture in London, we wouldn't have rave culture if they didn't have the foundational knowledge of how to physically build the sound system, and how to put on a party, and how to create the room. Because you have the music and you have the DJs, and obviously, you know, these guys are brilliant DJs in their own right, but what they really brought to it was they knew how to set up the room, they knew how to get the speakers in, and they knew how to take over a warehouse and turn it into a party. And yeah, I think to my mind now, it was definitely, you know, what happened in Ibiza was a really important part of it, but then it was that Caribbean sound system culture that was foundational, and then the anarchist kind of element of the travellers and the hippies and the squatters, and that kind of free party element. And it was those three things together that kind of created this tinderbox of energy, and everyone, like, because, you know, it was like, now there's a lot of artificial division where, you know, everyone's on social media and they're being taught to hate the people on the other side. It was the same then, right? There was a lot of just artificial division and people didn't really know each other, and then suddenly you were just in a room with all these different kinds of people and it didn't matter anymore. You know, it all just became gender was less important, race was less important, and we were obviously I don't want to idealise it, but there was a lot of moments where you did feel like we're all just one happy family dancing together in the room, and we hadn't experienced that before. We just genuinely hadn't experienced that sense of like unity.
Yeah. So you felt it was all of those elements combined to have a unifying energy or power, and
Yeah.
I kind of wanted to. Sorry, did you?
Well, we just wanted to be happy.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, can we just dance and be happy and forget all the bullshit?
Yeah, exactly. Which is kind of what we're here to doing now, right?
Yeah.
I also think that you talk about energy and you talk a little bit about. Just want you to say a little bit of something about the timing, because I know we talk about 1988. In 1988, I was working in a record shop called Black Market Records, and we made more money selling tickets for the raves than we did selling the music. And Black Market is a classic, iconic shop. Set up by Steve Jervy and Rennie Gelson originally, but featuring other people like Frankie Fonset, Mickey D, and all kinds of other DJs came through there. But you kind of start in ¡87, which is around the time of the harmonic convergence, and also I think you were 21 then. I don't want to give too much away, but do you want to say something a little bit about the kind of broader collective energy that played into people on the ground that did that?
Yeah, so my time frame, which was really hard to kind of narrow it down, but initially I wanted to interview 88 people, but then at the end I started getting people like Carl Cox. Now, like, I can't be like Carl Cox, I've interviewed 88 people, I'm stopping now. So it got up to like 93, I think, in the end. So I was trying to interview people, mostly people that were in London, but also my time frame was 87 and the beginning of Shum to 92 Castlemore, and that was my cut-off point, because I felt that was the golden era, the period where there was this magic.
And also you talk about, in the book you have sections, so you kind of have the ascent, the peak, and then is it descent? Is it ascent, peak?
Descent.
And descent. Yeah. But that's applying to that period of time more specifically.
Because I think that was one thing I learned as well, is that there's such a power in naivety, and the fact that Spiral Tribe didn't really have this master plan. You know, they were presented as these people with this like criminal intent, but they just really genuinely wanted to just have a party and have a good time. So there was no overarching master plan, and I think that is a big part of just that. There's a lot of power in naivety of just like, we didn't know what a threat we were to the establishment and the authorities. They saw it straight away, but we didn't know that. And so we were just like, yeah, we're going to take over a warehouse and fill it with thousands of people and have a party. And there was a period where we were really getting away with it, and it just felt like we were having a revolution. And then by 92, by Castlemore, that was when it really just kind of all went up.
So you say that particular period had quite a steep ascent and quite a steep descent.
Definitely,
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And also, the one thing I love about the book also is you separate into different sections, in terms of fashion and music and all kind of different sections. And you've managed to thematically, I don't know how long it took you to look at all the interviews and cut them up, and I really love that way. Often books have long interviews with people, but you've taken the bits and arranged them thematically. But I also wonder, in all of that polyphonic series of voices, you also say you interviewed yourself a lot. Kind of what do you sort of mean by that? And also, what kind of journey did you go on in realising something about that time and even now and what's happened since that you've realised in putting the book together, and from all of those voices that has meant you have some kind of different realisation of either where you've been or where you're going or what happened, like interviewing all those people and interviewing yourself. How was that process, and how did it change you in that sense?
Well, I wanted the book to feel like you were at a really good party. So I wanted it to have that kind of slightly chaotic party energy where it's just lots of different conversations. And there is, like I keep saying, there's some real highs, but there's also there's someone really messy in the corner that you're a bit worried about. Like, it's all going on, all the elements of life is going on. But I'd say my biggest motivation for writing the book was therapy, because I really didn't understand what happened in that period. And there's, you know, what I always refer to, there's a picture of me in 87, a picture of me in 89, and I looked like a completely different person. And I was like, I really don't understand what happened. And also I didn't remember. I still don't remember. People were like, that happened in 92. I'm like, are you sure? So I wanted to remember what happened, and I wanted to understand what happened. So was trying to piece it all together, really, which I think I would say you can't really piece it together, but I think it's really important that we have these conversations, because I think everything's cyclical. So there was it was a energetic peak for whatever reason. You mentioned the harmonic convergence. I think a lot of this is just like in the stars. It's just like in the astrology of the time. There was this peak of energy, and there's so much we can learn, both from the highs and the lows, from what happened, from what went really well and what went really badly. There's just so much we can learn. So the more we talk about it, the more we share that message for the next generation, that they can make better choices and they can make the kind of world that we want to live in. Because, you know, it was a very utopian time where we thought we were all, you know, one family going to live together as one, and it's so evident that that's not happening now. So, you know, maybe there's things we can learn from that time that can help us get closer to that.
Although in some ways we are one big family.
We are, and we out
in the tent, and we out here. So, you know, and there are, and I think what you said really was important was about alignment. So it was some kind of alignment of the people, the music, the time, and also a broader energetic context of, which is really broad, the planet, life, spirit, all of those kind of things. And every so often those things do come together in revolutions that we saw through punk, through the acid house, or the scenes that fed into that, and since then in club culture or with hip hop or whatever. We see these flash moments that happen in a particular moment in a particular place in time, but they are aligned and connected. I also thought it was really interesting in the introduction to the book, you also say that the book is not necessarily, is about having more questions than answers necessarily raised, which I think is really important. And so I kind of think, do you feel it's an ongoing conversation in terms of the information's there, but it's not about being definitive, it's just about having that conversation?
Yeah, and that's really how I live. It's like, that's why I do so many interviews, because I just love questions, and every time you ask someone a question, then you have more questions out of that question. So I just think we should all have more curiosity about life, and just more investigation, rather than just accepting the surface version of things and like what the mainstream tells us and what the perceived narrative is. The more we make our own decisions based on our own information, we're all going to come up with different explanations for things and different reasons for things. I think that's part of the beauty of being human, is that there isn't one right way of doing things. There's not one right way of describing what happened in 1988, but we should all have our own relationship to that, rather than just like accepting someone else's definition.
And I do love the untold story of a revolution, and I think it parts of the book that you've got and collated through these interviews and your own reflections it creates a different kind of tapestry of information about this era that doesn't deny other stories, but also fills in a lot of gaps, if that kind of makes sense.
Yeah, well, I was there. And some of the books were written by people that were there, but some of the books were written by people that weren't there, and you have a different experience. And I think, but like I said before, because I was so young, I think that naivety, actually, I was younger than 21, I think that naivety was a blessing in a lot of ways, because I didn't have, I'm so much more cynical now, I'm so much more jaded now. I didn't have that then. I was just like, woo!
I guess that's the pure energy of youth sometimes, which has it's a beautiful thing. Like, I really love being at this festival because it is from 8 to 80 or even younger. There was one quote I wanted to sort of quote back to you in my classes to read it. It's arbitrary and unnecessary to attempt to appear clear parameters of what, when, to whom and where it all happened. My intention is to conjure up a feeling and explore where that takes us, rather than delineate an accurate and reliable narrative. And I think that's really interesting, because in a way what you're digging to is a deeper thing than just facts and figures and names and places. Is about connecting into a feeling. Could you say a little bit more about the feeling or feelings? I don't, it might not be a single one, is it? Even in the night, we might go through many feelings, but conjuring up a feeling. What feeling do you think you conjured up, or what feeling gave you that feeling to want to write about it?
Yeah, I guess the word that's coming to me first is unity. It's that unity you feel when you're on the dance floor and you all love that tune and you just all get that same high from that tune. And maybe it's a tune that you've only listened to in your bedroom by yourself, or like, you know, it's just to take that thing that you have a personal relationship with that music and you love it so much, and then you're in a room full of people that feel it the same way. That's like one of the best highs.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, that's why, you know, there's moments here, you know, tonight, tomorrow, where that will happen, and whatever happens at that moment, you do feel connected to the DJ, to the music, to people around you, to that moment. And when it's a really good DJ set, there's a series of moments that creates that. And when it's a really good festival, there's a series of moments and DJs and people and acts that create that, to create this whole thing. And I guess that's what we're all living inside, or chasing, or wanting to have that feeling. I don't know, you mentioned euphoric or ecstatic. And I think even though they're words that are maybe overused, I think they're appropriate words.
And I love the Hakim Bey concept. He's got this concept called TAZ, Temporary Autonomous Zone. So it's a space where we all come together without hierarchy, without rules. So we're suspending the normal rules. So I feel like that's what the dance floor is you're in a, well, that's, you know, what he says, you're in a TAZ, where it doesn't matter if you're a doctor or a lawyer or a road sweeper, or, you know, it's just everyone's there and you're all the same, and it's like, it doesn't matter anymore. It's that, I guess it's very tribal, isn't it? You're just like back into you and your essence and your soul, and then it's how that changes you when you go back home and you go back into your day-to-day life. You just feel differently about yourself and you feel differently about your life, and it's kind of like a wiping the slate clean thing, isn't it? Where you just feel more love, I guess, and more inspired and more motivated to do good things in the world.
Yeah, and I guess it's regenerated, revitalized, remixed into some other kind of space, and so that's Taz, right?
Yeah, TAZ.
Yeah, I love that. So we're all going to have to be going around the festival going, Taz, we're the Taz, because we are literally in that bubble of space where we're all having these moments, and whilst we might be sharing the moment, we each have our particular relationship to that moment, if that kind of makes sense. So it's a way of being kind of together but also in your space at the same time. Could you just say something about dancing, like what for you, either what people said in the book about dancing, like maybe someone like Trevor Shakes, who is renowned as a credible dancer, or yourself with experience just dancing, you know, what for you is the beauty of dancing, movement?
Yeah, well, it's embodiment, isn't it? Because especially now, even more now, when we're all on our devices, and I'm same as everyone, I'm on my devices all the time. So we're just in our heads all the time. So it's coming fully into your body. It's like really fully experiencing your body, and that freedom of movement where, you know, you're not just doing a yoga class, someone's telling you do this, do that. You're like totally in charge of how you're moving your body. We don't experience that enough in our modern lives, of just moving our bodies to that, in that free and expansive way. And again, it just changes your whole relationship with yourself. If you dance to a dawn, which I've done many times in my life, it's just like you just feel totally golden at the end. You know, if you get to see that sunrise, it just...
No, absolutely. And I think when I was a teenager, I used to dance 5 nights a week, 5 hours a night, so it kept me fit and slim. But also, more importantly, I didn't realise that it was moving meditation.
Right.
So it kept my mind together in a way only my body could understand. It wasn't being in the head, it was actually being in the body in some kind of instinctive feeling. And I think dancing does things that we don't even potentially comprehend, but it does that for us.
Yeah.
And I guess that's why we're all here this weekend.
Yeah. Should I just plug the book? We've probably run out of time.
Yeah.
So I did it all myself, from start to finish.
Also, can I just say, this really reminds me of annuals. You know, when you're young and you get annuals as a kid, and it's a beautiful artifact with text and pictures. And I actually think it's a book, but I think it's a work of art, because the way in which the art and the text and the book's been woven in, plus it's a really important oral history. And I was rereading it again because of doing the talk today, and I've reread it many times. Every time I reread it, I'm amazed at how good it is, and I'm not just saying that because Kate's sitting next to me. I genuinely, in the same way that being on a dance floor, when I read a book and it has some energy and meaning and feeling behind it, I get that same kick as when a tune drops. So I'm just giving you a plug because it's, maybe it's easier for someone else to plug it for you, but and also it's all fully funded independently, so you really need to go and buy this book and support this author because it's a really important document of that time.
I wrote it, like you said, I edited it, I co-designed it, I published it. It's total, which I felt like it's been such a long journey. I started writing it in 2007, and I did nearly give up, and you were one of the people that really inspired me not to give up on it. But I think now it's out in the world. I think it was meant to be. That's part of the spirit of that time, is like pure DIY independence, pure just you got to do it yourself. No one's gonna do it for you. So.
And where can you get it?
It's on Bandcamp, it's on Amazon, and it's here now.
Yeah. Will you sign a copy?
Yes.
Oh, good. Great. And has anybody got any question about this time or the book or anything they'd like to ask Kate?
Was it difficult to pull it all together and do it all yourself? I mean, did you?
It's a true labour of love, but I mean, I think again that's just symbolic of this whole culture, right? It's like no one's in this business for the money. You just do it because you care and you love it and you're passionate about it and you believe in it and you just can't not do it, really. So it did take me a good part of 20 years, to just. There was lots of periods where I gave up on it and just stopped, and then I got a good friend Ben Cheryl. He really helped me for a bit. Paul really helped me for a bit. So they kind of inspired me to keep trying with it. But yeah, I think it's a labour of love always.